Well, I want to turn to some developments in the Rust shooting case. Actor Alec Baldwin could face new charges following the incident which killed Helena Hutchins on set back in October 2021. A new forensic report shows that the trigger on the gun had to be pulled and therefore it did not malfunction. Baldwin has consistently denied ever pulling the trigger. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter earlier this year, but those charges were later dismissed. Well, for more on this, I want to bring in security correspondent Josh Campbell, who joins us from Los Angeles. Josh, good to have you on the story. So this is a surprising turn of events. What exactly does this mean for Alec Baldwin?
Yeah, Lynda, if prosecutors in the U.S. state of New Mexico hold to what they wrote in court in June, this actor, Alec Baldwin, could face new charges in that fatal shooting. Now, just to remind our viewers, Baldwin was originally charged with involuntary manslaughter, but the case was dismissed. A law enforcement source told me that the gun that was used on that movie set in the fatal shooting of the cinematographer, it was found to have been modified. But I'll read you part of what prosecutors said at the time. This is so important. They wrote in court that the charges against Alec Baldwin were dismissed without prejudice because of possible malfunction of the gun. If it is determined that the gun did not malfunction, charges against Mr. Baldwin will proceed. Now, at the time, investigators in New Mexico actually brought in the FBI and they had them take a look at this gun. The FBI determined that that gun could not have been fired without someone actually pulling the trigger. Now, prosecutors commissioned an independent study, which essentially came to the same conclusion. In this new report that we just got our hands on, I'll read you part of that. Examiners who looked at that gun say that although Alec Baldwin repeatedly denies pulling the trigger, given the tests, findings, and observations reported here, the trigger had to be pulled or depressed sufficiently to release the fully cocked or retracted hammer of the evidence revolver. Now, this is so important because we're waiting to see what prosecutors will actually do. They said in June, if it's determined that the gun didn't malfunction, they will charge Baldwin. Again, we're waiting to see whether they will actually go through with that. For his part, Baldwin, of course, has maintained his innocence. He's saying that he never actually pulled the trigger during the rehearsal of that movie scene. Take a listen to what he told CNN last year.
I never once said, never, that the gun went off in my hand automatically. I always said I pulled the hammer back, and I pulled it back as far as I could. I never took a gun and pointed at somebody and clicked the thing.
Now, if a new charge is actually filed, I think the Baldwin case will have a strong defense in one particular area, and that centers on the structural integrity of the gun itself. Now, when the FBI took the gun to their laboratory in Virginia, as they were doing their tests, the gun actually malfunctioned. Parts of that gun broke apart. And so this new test that was done in New Mexico by officials, it was actually done using new components. So you can only imagine that Baldwin's defense attorneys would be seizing on that and saying, look, yeah, it may work perfectly with new parts, but how did it work at the time of that shooting back in October 2021? Something we will certainly be watching for. But again, all eyes right now on the prosecutors trying to wait and see whether they will actually bring new charges against Alec Baldwin, Lynda.
Yeah, and we'll see how Alec Baldwin is responding, as well as the producers of that film, who had said that they intended to resume production. Josh Campbell for us from Los Angeles. Thank you.